The rebel without a clue. Brian Viner says these two female con artists are a truly dire double act. And the ones being fleeced in the hustle are the cinema audiences going to watch it. Be Brian Viner for the Daily Mail, published 22:13 British Summer Time, the 9th of May 2019, updated 2:07 British Summer Time, the 10th of May 2019. The Hustle 12A verdict. Don't be duped. Rating. The trailer for The Hustle, about a pair of female con artists played by Anne Hathaway and Rebel Wilson, has been running in cinemas for a few weeks now. Every time I've seen it, I've looked forward less and less to watching the film. Occasionally, trailers these days still do what they're meant to, and make you actually want to see the movie. But, more and more, they seem to fall into two other categories. There's the trailer that gives so much away that you think, why fork out on an outing to the cinema when the entire story has been so neatly digested for you? Then there's the category into which The Hustle falls, which makes you ask, if those are truly the best but the moments intended to entice us to our local multiplex, then what must the rest of the blessed film be like? The answer, in this case, is pure cinematic bilge. Actresses Rebel Wilson, left, and Anne Hathaway, right, have teamed up to star in comedy film The Hustle. Even if you happen to think that Wilson is the funniest comic actress in the world, and love the boorish, accident-prone, fat girl persona that she peddles so relentlessly, you might feel duped out of your ticket money. My own feeling, ventured more than once before, is that a little rebel goes a long way. But in The Hustle, which she also co-produced, there's a great deal of her, stretching her one-note act well beyond its natural tolerance point. Hathaway is her comic foil, the little to her large. Even the retro, 60s-style, animated opening credits try to milk the physical differences between the pair. That's fair enough. Not that Wilson and Hathaway will ever trouble Laurel and Hardy, Abbott and Costello, or, indeed, even Sid and Eddie in the double-act rankings. We know from pictures such as The Intern and Ocean's 8 that Hathaway is a deft comedy performer, but she's not among the handful of stars with an ability to outshine the material they're given. The cut-glass British accent she affects for most of the film might be designed to give her character a veneer of class, but it doesn't, alas, do the same for the film. Like the infinitely superior Ocean's 8, The Hustle is a feminized reworking of a film with male protagonists, in this instance, the 1988 Michael Caine-Steve Martin vehicle Dirty Rotten Scoundrels, which was itself a remake of Bedtime Story, 1964, starring Marlon Brando and David Niven. All those years ago, in Bedtime Story, Niven played an elegant English swindler plying his trade in the fictional Côte d'Azur resort of Beaumont-sur-Mer. That's Hathaway's role. She plays Jo, the name perhaps intended as a nod to Joanna Lumley, whose accent Hathaway has admitted she is trying to mimic, who has a lucrative con going in the Beaumont casino, using her beauty to prey on vain, gullible millionaires. Then, on a train, she encounters Penny Wilson, a loud, uncouth Australian who scams men into funding the search for her sister, who has been abducted, so she tells them, and sold into sex slavery. The last thing Jo wants is for Penny to muscle in on her patch, so she does her best to stop her, but then realizes it might be easier to train her up and work as a team. Julie tries to teach Penny how to force a tear to trickle down her cheek, the better to appear fragile and vulnerable. Penny gurns furiously in a vain attempt to find the elusive tear. "Are you constipated?" asks Jo. This is what passes for comedy in The Hustle, which is scripted by Jack Schaefer, and has none of the wit and sophistication of, let's say, Carry On Matron. Soon, however, Jo realizes that she doesn't want Penny as an accomplice. "There isn't room for both of us in Beaumont-sur-Mer," she says, prompting those of us suffering in the audience to conclude that it's a shame there's room for either of them. Anyway, she proposes a con-off, a competition to see who can be the first to fleece a naive young tech billionaire, Alex Sharp, of $500,000. The loser must leave town. A series of less than hilarious set pieces ensue, followed by a twist that almost nobody in the audience under the age of 11 will see coming. What is a surprise, though, is that the first-time director of this rubbish is the engaging British comedian Chris Addison, whose TV credits as a comic actor include the wonderfully scabrous political satire The Thick of It. Surely he knows what's funny and what isn't. Still, if he's the man responsible for keeping the running time down to 94 minutes, then he's at least done us one favor, despite a very worrying hint that a sequel might be on the cards. Detective Pikachu, PG, verdict, family fun rating. Detective Pikachu is altogether more fun, however cynical it might seem to try to cash in on the Pokémon craze. Now the first generation of addicts to the multimedia monster franchise are becoming parents themselves. Pikachu is a cute, wise-cracking ball of yellow fur voiced by Ryan Reynolds, although nobody except an orphan teenager called Tim Justice Smith can understand him. Together, in a lively pastiche of film noir, they investigate the apparent death of Tim's father in Rhyme City, a metropolis where humans and Pokémon creatures live in harmony. Family-friendly film Detective Pikachu stars Justice Smith, left, and Catherine Newton, right, with Ryan Reynolds voicing the titular Pokémon character. A media baron played by Bill Nye seems to have something to do with the mystery, and a pretty intern, Catherine Newton, working for his thinly disguised TV company CNN, helps him to solve it. Writer-director Rob Letterman, Shark Tale, Goosebumps, lets it all get decidedly weird, but there are a few great lines, all delivered by Reynolds, and some terrific computer-generated effects. Solid family fun, high life, 18, verdict, original, but pretentious rating. This bizarre science fiction drama from French director Claire Denis, her English-language debut, is nothing if not original. There have been some rhapsodic early reviews, including one, understandably quoted on the posters, that urges people to see the film a second, third and fourth time. Well, it didn't float my spaceship at all. One viewing was more than enough. It certainly begins arrestingly, with an astronaut, Robert Pattinson, tenderly communing with his baby daughter. It turns out that he is Monty, one of a band of death row convicts who have been dispatched to infinity and beyond, partly to get shut of them. Robert Pattinson, pictured, stars in the science fiction drama High Life by French director Claire Denis, but they have also been propelled into space in the hope that their epic journey towards a black hole will provide scientists back on a blighted Earth with information they need to keep humankind alive. There is a doctor among them, dementedly played by Juliette Binoche, who was herself guilty of murder back on Earth. Her apparent job is to build the craft's future population by way of artificial insemination, which she does in all sorts of sneaky ways. Monty calls her the shaman of sperm, and resists her sexual advances, so instead she gets her kicks privately, in a special room that reminded me powerfully of the Orgasmatron in Woody Allen's 1973 sci-fi comedy Sleeper. Maybe that was why I found it impossible to take seriously. The film too often tumbles from whimsy into full-bore pretentiousness, while one sickeningly violent scene in particular seems designed purely to shock, not because it moves the story along. Pattinson, the former Twilight star, gives a strikingly committed performance, and all are cast by admirably into Denis's disturbing vision of the future, which, very oddly indeed, includes the space travelers watching grainy old TV footage of an international rugby match at Murrayfield. Whether audiences will is another matter. The Vulture, male critics' pick of the week's must-see events on stage. The Last Temptation of Boris Johnson. Will Barton plays Boris Johnson. Will Barton, pictured, stars as the titular anti-hero in Jonathan Maitland's comedy about the Tory party's nemesis and self-styled saviour Alexander Boris de Pfeffel Johnson. Maitland's previous plays include An Audience with Jimmy Savile and Dead Sheep. Here, we find the bumbling blonde looking back from 2029, once more mired in controversy amid fresh plans to make Britain great again. Previewing now opens Monday. Park Theatre, London N43JP, parktheatre.co.uk or call 02078706876. Patrick Marmion on tour. Yola Somerset singer Yola Carter once a backing vocalist for Katy Perry and Will Young. Somerset singer Yola Carter, pictured hooked up with Black Keys frontman Dan Auerbach to record her debut album, Walk Through Fire, in Nashville, out now on Auerbach's independent Easy Eye sound label. The album is a compelling blend of country and dusty Springfield-like soul ballads. Now back on home soil, Yola starts a UK tour at the Cathedral Quarter Arts Festival, Belfast, on Sunday. She also plays Glastonbury in June. Adrian thrills on show, Women's Work, Pioneering Women in Craft, 1918 to 1939. The lovely Sussex village of Dishling is always worth a visit, with its thriving museum an extra treat. This excellent exhibition reveals how highly original women textile makers, pictured ceramicists and silversmiths adapted traditional skills to modern design and created successful businesses between the wars. Women's Work, Pioneering Women in Craft, 1918 to 1939, Ditchling Museum until October 6, ditchlingmuseumartcraft.org.uk. Robin Simon on TV, Mum, Leslie Manville as Kathy. 2 years and 2 series after Kathy, Leslie Manville, pictured, lost her husband. The beautifully observed little gem of a sitcom returns for a third and, sadly, final series. This time it's moved to a new location, as the family gather at a posh country house to celebrate Derek's birthday. As always, it's an absolute joy. Wednesday, 10 p.m, BBC 2, Mike Mulvihill lets block ads. Why?